Ron Siegel Radio, your home and mortgage connection.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
And hello again. Welcome to Ron Siegel Radio. This is the show with no real boundaries as we discuss current events, financial markets, politics, sports, even poking fun at the rest of the media. This is the show that connects the dots of confusion. Delivered by conflicting media reports, we connect the dots so you know the actions you can take. How your family or business can benefit in current events. Most of all, thank you for joining me. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day. We have a very focused show. We only chat about items that affect the roof over your head, your bank account, and anything I feel would benefit you. And let me remind you, if you ever have any home or finance-related questions, I am the consumer advocate looking out for you. And you can reach out to me directly, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or RonSiegelRadio.com. Just remember, that's the number you call anytime for assistance. When you call that number, it comes directly to me first. There are operators standing by.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
While I do have a great team when it comes to developing a financing plan, a plan to save you money, I personally work with you. Even if you don't have any needs today, save this number in your phone for future reference. 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. And yes, we are celebrating today. We do every day on Ron Siegel Radio. Now, I'm looking at some of these celebration items today, and I'm looking at it just because I've got some friends, yes, I do, that are into this. It's National Cat Day.
It is what it is.
I'm not a cat person. Are you a cat person? My mom was always allergic to cats, so we never had anything to do with cats. So not into the cats, not into the movie or the play Cats. So, you know, like I say, not going to go there. But here's one that I do get into every once in a while, National Oatmeal Day. What do you like on your oatmeal? Gosh, that looks too healthy. That almost looks dry. Is that like just the oats itself? You know, you got the berries there. That look, you know, that's kind of healthy. I like a good oatmeal. Coach's Oats, one of my favorites. Throw some raisins or cranberries in there. Little brown sugar. Call it a day. I have to be careful though, because brown sugar sometimes will get a little too much for me. So, you know, you got to be careful. You got to watch out for that. But today is National Oatmeal Day, so we're going to go with it. We'll stick with the National Oatmeal Day. What are the markets doing today? Waiting. So we're looking at the Dow Jones Industrial Average right now is up 238 points. The NASDAQ is up 97. The S&P 500 is up 1160. Oil is at $60.84 a barrel. And gasoline, Josh came out to California just so he could get gas because he likes the gas prices out here. He actually might go get back to Nevada on fumes. $4.58 a gallon for gasoline here in the formerly Golden State. 304 is the national average. So we're paying $1.50 more than the national average because we got Gavin Newsom here keeping us on high prices. Josh is going to go back there and see $3.50 gas when he gets back to Nevada. So just get there just so you can get into town, Josh. Just time it right. And that's kind of the way it goes. Washington, $4.31 a gallon. Hawaii, $4.48. So Hawaii's even cheaper than California. Of course, almost every state in the union is cheaper than California. There's even in the top 10, the top 10 highest priced states, even most of them are under $4 a gallon. So because we like taxes in California, we have to support all of Gavin's habits. And yes, I'm going to just throw that out there. It is supporting Gavin's habits. He comes up with more frivolous lawsuits. It'd be fascinating to see how many of the lawsuits he goes and he gets these frivolous lawsuits and announces them with a big fanfare. Then he gets a California judge to agree with him with a big fanfare. And when it gets overturned at the appellate level or the Supreme Court, Gavin's gone. So he just wastes more of our money that we could be doing other things with. Proposition 50, another one of those things. They don't tell you. They say it's the Trump's grab. But have you read the real results? So they don't like the idea that Texas lost a lawsuit over racism, lost at the Supreme Court level, and had to redistrict. Court order. Yet Gavin's out there saying, well, Texas did this, so California needs to, take away people's rights. And where the people said we want a nonpartisan commission to oversee this, Gavin says, no. We want a partisan commission, and we want to do it our way, and we want to bypass the state constitution. Unbelievable. And you get all these people that are believing him, and it'll be fascinating to see what happens with Proposition 50. Wouldn't surprise me with all the money that's behind it, that it passes. This is California. We like high taxes. We like doing things that will cause more and more harm to our citizens. We like these frivolous lawsuits. How do I know we like this? Because we continue voting the same way. If we didn't like it, we would have Rick Caruso as mayor in Los Angeles. We wouldn't have Gavin Newsom as the governor. And I'm not in Los Angeles. I don't get to vote in Los Angeles, but it sure covers our airwaves, so we can't avoid it. But let's look at Karen Bass's resume and Rick Caruso's resume. And if it wasn't for the fact that Karen Bass is just a known liberal, very liberal, both of them were Democrats. I think Rick Caruso switched to independent after he lost. But, one of them saved his properties during the fires. One of them was out of the country, knowing that we had this massive windstorm coming. Just look at the optics there. Now, we've got the government shut down, and the latest lawsuit from Gavin Newsom is he doesn't like that the government shut down, so he sues the federal government and the Trump administration over SNAP benefits. Now, I don't understand the SNAP benefits. How is it that we have 40 million households on SNAP benefits? I believe the total number of households in America is 160 million households. Yes, I know there's 350 million people, but I believe there's 160 million households, and there's 40 million households that are getting SNAP benefits. Seems to me like that math doesn't add up, but this isn't the time to deal with it. The time to deal with it is get the people paid so they have money to eat. And we saw again yesterday that the Democrats voted against it. For those of you that say, the Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House, no. The Republicans have a majority of the House of Representatives. They have a majority of the Senate, but in order to get anything done, you need 60 votes, so they don't control the Senate. And yes, the president is aligned with the Republicans, so the White House is on the Republican side. But anybody that tells you that the Congress is controlled by the Republicans, so they should just do whatever they want, they can't. They need 60 votes. And there's John Fetterman, Democrat, and I think one or two others have crossed over to the sane side, but the rest of them, they just want to keep the government closed. So say thank you if you're traveling for the holidays and you get stuck with TSA or air traffic controllers, because they seem to be getting sick right now, maybe sick of not getting paid. Well, you can say thank you to Chuck Schumer and his cohorts. You are listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate current events and the financial markets. When we come back, why you don't need to be afraid of today's mortgage rates. Teaching kids about money through everyday moments. Is if your house isn't selling, it may be your asking price. All that and more. Reach me anytime. Off-air number 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or RonSiegelRadio.com. Facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you missed any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube. Ron Siegel, the numeral 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Ron Siegel Radio. Your home and mortgage connection.
Are you a veteran, own a home, and need money? The Siegel Lending Team is here to help veterans refinance and get the money they need. The VA 100 lets you borrow up to 100% of your home's value, refinance your mortgages, consolidate credit cards, and lower your payments by an average of $700 a month. And the Siegel Lending Team knows that character means more than a credit score. Call 800-306-1990. That's 800-306-1990. Rate subject to change without notice. Licensed by the California Department of Corporations, NMLS 21037, and DRE number 018694452. You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio. Or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. Mortgage Minute today being brought to you by rsrlinks.com/mobile app, rsrlinks.com/mobile app. And every day at this time, OBMMI, they provide the most comprehensive, accurate, timely, and interactive analysis of pricing ever conducted in the mortgage industry, calculated from actual locked rates with consumers across 35% of all mortgage transactions nationwide. They do not tell us points paid, points received, or the APR. They only tell us the number you put in your mortgage calculator to figure out what your principal and interest payment will be. And again, that mortgage calculator is available for free, rsrlinks.com/mobile app. What did rates do yesterday? Conventional 30-year fixed, 6.118. That was down. Jumbo 30-year fixed, 6.341. That was down. FHA 30-year fixed, 6.006. That was up. VA 30-year fixed, 5.668. That was down. USDA 30-year fixed, 5.928. That was up. Those are all yesterday's rates. If you want to know our thoughts about the market this morning, go to our Ron Siegel Radio community. How do you get it? rsrlinks.com/HBOD. That'd be your household board of directors. That's what HBOD stands for. rsrlinks.com/HBOD. So let's see what the markets are doing today. We've got the S&P 500 is now up 16 points. It's been coming back to earth a little bit. And we're looking at the 10-year Treasury, U.S. 10-year Treasury, 3.993. That one's up just a little bit on the day, and the mortgage bond is down 5 basis points. Doesn't matter a whole heck of a lot. Remember, the bond goes down, rates go up. It's always an inverse pattern. And it's just mathematics. So don't try and figure out why it is what it is, because it's just the math. Now, why are these things happening is the question you come to Ron Siegel Radio for. Well, we are on day, I think it's 28 right now, of the government shutdown. So we're watching on that one. This afternoon, 11 o'clock our time, the Fed will conclude their 2-day meeting. They're going to cut rates by 25 basis points, 0.25%. That is the Fed funds rate. That is not mortgage rates. Anything the Federal Reserve does with regard to mortgage rates is already built into the price, because we've been expecting there's like 100% chance of a cut. Now, if the Fed were to go and cut rates by 50 basis points, 0.5%, that's going to have an effect on the market. But anything else they do from a rate standpoint will not affect the market. It's already baked in. The commentary afterwards could have an effect. The thing that could be most market moving and beneficial for the bond market is what the Fed decides during their meeting to do with their balance sheet runoff. So what is balance sheet runoff? Well, the balance sheet grew from $4.2 trillion at the start of COVID to now it's over $9 trillion. Those are bonds, treasuries, and mortgage bonds that the Federal Reserve bought with money out of thin air. They just create the money and they buy it. That's called inflation. And the Fed's been letting that balance sheet run down for a while. So it goes all back to supply and demand. Supply and demand says if the Fed's buying, that's demand. If there's not enough supply, price goes up. And if the Fed is not buying, if there's more supply, price goes down. It's just the way it works. So as we talked about this yesterday, Fed Chair Powell said they're going to end their runoff in MBS and treasuries in the coming months. Currently, they're allowing up to $35 billion in mortgage bonds and $5 billion in treasuries to fall off their balance sheet from maturing treasuries and principal payments or refinances and sales on the mortgage bonds. But if they were to end the runoff, they would keep their balance sheet at the same level, and any assets that run off, then they will purchase treasuries most likely. The Fed has been clear they no longer want to purchase mortgage-backed securities, but this would still be another form of removing restriction and being somewhat stimulative to the bond market. Stimulative means bonds up, price down. The Powell press conference can also be a big market mover. As always, his tone, whether dovish or hawkish, will likely have a big say in which way the bonds trade this afternoon. The Fed is likely going to explain that they are not receiving all the data and are driving the ship somewhat blind. Watch out for icebergs. But the data they have received has shown a weak labor market and cooler inflation than expected. It's hard to imagine a scenario where the Fed sounds overly hawkish, and more likely they make comments that are neutral or somewhat bond friendly. The Mortgage Bankers Association released their mortgage application data for the week, showing that rates declined to 4.3% on average, with a small fraction of points included. I have to check that because that doesn't make sense to me. It might probably 6.3 on average. Pending home sales measures signed contracts and existing homes were flat in September. Hoping to see a stronger figure here, but as mentioned, rates did move higher in the second half of the month. The flat reading was weaker than expected as the market was looking for a slight gain of 1.6%. Sales are down 0.9% from last year. Seasonal adjustments always play a role as the organization putting together these reports tries to remove seasonal factors to provide the true strength and weakness within a given report. It's a positive sign to see that ongoing seasonal adjustments, pending sales have been moving higher and showing more relative strength. That is the Mortgage Minute, brought to you by rsrlinks.com/MBOD, rsrlinks.com/MBOD. And let's see, I think we've got Mortgage 101 brought to you by gethomeselect.com, gethomeselect.com. Why you don't need to be afraid of today's mortgage rates. Mortgage rates have been the monster under the bed for a while. Every time they tick up, people flinch and say, maybe I'll wait. But here's the twist. Waiting for that perfect 5-point-something rate could end up haunting your wallet later. And I've been talking about this for a long time. We even did a segment on it, why that 3% mortgage is killing you. And it's the same thing for the mindset. rsrlinks.com/3PCT. rsrlinks.com/3PCT. Mortgage rates have been the monster under the bed for a while. Every time they tick up, people flinch and say, maybe I'll wait. The magic number, according to the National Association of Realtors, a 30-year fixed rate mortgage of 6% would make the median priced home affordable for about 5.5 million more households, including 1.6 million renters. If rates were to hit that magic number, it's likely that about 10% or 550,000 of those additional households would buy a home over the next 12 or 18 months. When the market hits that mortgage rate sweet spot, as expert forecasters are starting to say, is more likely in 2026, the psychological shift to lower rates will kick in for more of today's hopeful buyers. That will unleash some pent-up demand that's been waiting on the sidelines, and the increase in activity will cause prices to rise. And while a 5.99% rate might sound like a big win, if you're waiting for that number to make your move, it might not actually save you as much as you think. Here's how the math looks when you run the numbers. And yes, we have a chart for you if you're watching us on ronsiegelradio.tv, any of our socials, or the ABC News and Talk, AM 1490, FM 98.1 video feed. So waiting for a rate 6% may not save as much as you think on a $400,000 loan. The difference between today's rate and 5.99%, drum roll please, is about, and I thought I had my drum roll on here, but maybe I don't. Got to get that. There it is. I thought I had it. A long drum roll. $51.65. That's what the change is. On a $400,000 mortgage, the difference between today's rate, around 6.2 and 5.99, is roughly $50 a month. That's less than people spend on weekly coffee runs or occasional DoorDash orders. And as prices tick up with more buyers in the market, that could quickly negate any of your potential savings. So if you're waiting for 5.99%, that difference might not be worth missing out on today's opportunities, like having more homes to choose from, better negotiation leverage with today's sellers, and fewer buyers out there looking for the same houses. Consider our buy down program for the concessions. Instead of offering a lower price, ask the seller to give you the same 3, 4, 5% in concessions to buy down the interest rate. Check it out. rsrlinks.com/buydown. rsrlinks.com/buydown. Because the reality is those benefits start to slip away when more buyers begin to make their moves, and a rate under 6% is exactly what they're waiting for. Why acting now makes sense? Jessica Lotz, Deputy Chief Economist and VP of Research at the National Association of Realtors, says over the last 5 weeks, mortgage rates have averaged 6.31%. This has provided savvy buyers a sweet spot to re-examine the home search process, with more inventory widening their choices. And like Matt Vernon, head of retail lending at Bank of America, notes, quote, rather than waiting it out for a rate that they like better, hopeful home buyers should assess their personal financial situation. If the house is right for them and the upfront and monthly payments are affordable, it could be the right chance to make a move, unquote. Bottom line, if moving at today's rate scares you, remember, waiting does not always pay off. Strategy beats rate always. Once rates dip below 6%, as some experts project they'll do next year, more buyers and higher prices will be back. So don't be afraid of today's mortgage rates, because if you're ready, this might just be your chance to make your move before the market wakes up again. That is Mortgage 101, brought to you by GetHomeSelect.com, GetHomeSelect.com. You are listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. When we come back, let's see, we've got, if your house isn't selling, it may be your asking price. And teaching kids about money through everyday moments. All that and more. Reach me anytime. Off-air number, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com, facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you miss any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube, Ron Siegel, the numeral 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Ron Siegel Radio. Your home and mortgage connection.
Confused about the home buying process? Or curious how much you really know about buying a home? Take the First Home IQ quiz to test your understanding of buying a home. Created by the nonprofit First Home IQ, this 5-minute quiz will give you a score, what you missed, and why. Take the quiz in 5 minutes at rsrlinks.com/FHIQ and find out what you need to know about buying your first home. That's rsrlinks.com/FHIQ.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions, as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. Real-time real estate segment today being brought to you by rsrmoney.com, rsrmoney.com. Is the housing market going to crash? Here's what experts say. If you've seen headlines or social posts calling for a housing crash, it's easy to wonder if home values are about to take a hit. But here's the simple truth. The data doesn't point to a crash. It points to slow, continued growth. And sure, it's going to vary by local area. Some markets will see prices rise more than others, and some may even see small, short-term declines. But the big picture is home prices are expected to rise nationally, not fall over the next 5 years. If you want to know where your home prices are going, pretty simple. All you've got to do is go and check out some of the free tools that we give you at Ron Siegel Radio. rsrlinks.com/market report. rsrlinks.com/market report. And we'll give you the free tool that talks exactly about what's happening in your zip code. See, I give you these reports, and they're national reports, but you want to look at what's going on in your zip code as well. And you get that at rsrlinks.com/market report. In the home price expectation survey, that's my favorite. Comes out from Fannie Mae each quarter. Over 100 leading housing market experts weigh in on where they project home prices will go from here. And in the report that was just released, the experts agreed prices are projected to climb nationally through at least 2029. Now think about that. Why do I like this report so much? Because it's not just Wells Fargo. It's not just the Mortgage Bankers Association. It's not just Fannie Mae. It's 100 leading housing market experts that are all saying that. And they're saying that in 2025, they expect the housing, and again, most of it's already in, but they're talking about housing 2.42%. 2026, 2.08. 2027, 2.94, 2028, 3.48, and 2029, 3.57. Now, those are national numbers. In Southern California, we're generally double what the rest of the country is. So you just think about some of these issues to get further to drive this home. I've got another chart that I've got on my screen here. I didn't send him over to Josh, so he probably might not have them already. But it gives us some data. Notice we're looking at overall prices expected to rise 15% from now through the end of 2029. Optimists say we'll beat that and see a roughly 26% increase. Pessimists anticipate prices will go up by 5% during that period. What sticks out most, none of the groups who study the market are forecasting a crash or even a decline over the next 5 years. Now, how does this compare to normal for the market? Focus back when we were talking earlier. The projections call for 2 to 3.5% price increases in each of the next 5 years. For context, the average rate of appreciation for the last 25 years was closer to 4 to 5% annually. So while that's slightly below the historical average, it's much more sustainable and typical than where the market was in 2020, 2021, or 2022. Back then, prices rose too much, too fast, based on record low supply and record high demand. Some places even saw prices climb by 15 to 20%. So while it may feel like prices are stalling compared to those pandemic-era surges, what's really happening is that the market is finally finding balance again. Why prices aren't expected to crash? A lot of the chatter about home prices today is based on that rapid rise in the old saying that what goes up must come down. But historically, that's not really true. Home prices almost always rise. And the main reason we're not heading for a repeat of 2008 is simple. Economics 101, supply and demand. Even though affordability challenges have made it harder for some people to buy over the past few years, there still aren't enough homes for everyone who wants one. And that ongoing shortage is keeping upward pressure on prices nationally. That's why experts across the board can confidently agree we're not headed for a price collapse, but for steady long-term appreciation. And just in case it's the economy that's got you worried, remember this. Over the past 50 years, there have been plenty of economic events that have impacted the market. And one thing that's consistently been true throughout time is the housing market always recovers. And we're coming through that turn right now and going into a recovery. Bottom line, if you've been waiting to buy or sell because you're worried about a crash, it's time to look at the data, not the headlines. The question isn't if home prices will rise, it's by how much. Let's connect so you know what's happening in our local market and what these forecasts mean for your next move. That is the Real-Time Real Estate segment brought to you by rsrmoney.com, rsrmoney.com. Let's see, we got Borrow Smart segment brought to you by gethomeselect.com, gethomeselect.com. Picture this. You're in the cereal aisle. Your 8-year-old is begging for this $6 box with the cartoon character, and you're holding the $3 store in your store brand. Sound familiar? What if I told you that moment right there is worth more than any formal financial lesson you could teach? I am Ron Siegel, Certified Liability Advisor, helping families build wealth through strategic debt management. You know, as parents, we spend a lot of time worrying about teaching our kids about what we think we need. Workbooks, apps, and some elaborate system. But here's what I've learned after decades in the business and raising 3 kids of my own. The best money lessons happen in the middle of our regular life. That cereal aisle standoff, that's not a problem. That's an opportunity. Instead of just saying no or launching into a lecture about budgeting, try turning it into a game. Ask your kid, would you rather have the fancy cereal now or save that extra $3 towards something special later? You're not lecturing. You're helping them think about choices. You're showing them that every dollar has to work somewhere and that they get to decide where. This is the same principle I use with clients when we talk about their household budget. It's not about saying no to everything. It's about understanding what matters most and making conscious choices. Here's another simple one. Pay with cash sometimes. I know, we're all tapping our cards or phones these days, but when you hand over actual bills and get change back, you can point out Lincoln on the penny or the buildings on the bills. These little conversations make money real instead of abstract. When they're old enough, give them chores that matter to the household, not just busy work, but real contributions, then pay them something for it. Or here's a clever idea I heard from a client. Create family dollars that kids can earn and spend on things like extra screen time, picking tonight's movie, or choosing where to go on Saturday. Suddenly, they're learning about income, expenses, and having to prioritize. Those are the same skills they'll need at 25, 35, and 65. You want to really teach the connection between effort and money? Let them run a little business, lemonade stand, selling friendship bracelets, whatever sparks their interest. Here's the key. Say yes, and then step backward. Let them figure out pricing. Let them make change. Let them deal with the customer who wants exact change when they don't have it. Your job isn't to fix every problem. Your job is to let them learn from solving these problems themselves. Now, as kids get older, you can bring them into age-appropriate family financial conversations. Your kids can understand the difference between needs and wants. Middle schoolers can grasp why you compare prices or why some months feel tighter than others. Teenagers can handle real conversations about college costs, why you chose the car you drive, how credit cards actually work. I remember when our kids were teenagers, we started explaining why we made certain financial decisions, not the exact numbers in our bank account, but the thinking behind our choices, why we prioritize certain things, why we save for emergency, why giving to charity matters to our family, and how we make room for it in the budget. These conversations taught them something critical. Money decisions aren't just math. They reflect your values. And yes, there are tools that can help. Apps for tracking savings goals, board games about money, investment simulators for older kids. But here's what matters. These tools should support your conversations, not replace them. The app is just a tool. The real learning happens when you sit down together and talk about what they're seeing. One thing I always recommend, help them open their first savings account. Most financial institutions have youth accounts with low minimums and no fees. The account itself isn't the lesson. The lesson is the conversations that happen when you check the balance together, talk about their savings goals, and watch money grow over time. You're making the abstract idea of saving money tangible and real. Listen, I've been helping families manage financial lives since 1983. I've seen what works and what doesn't. And here's what I know. Kids who grow up having regular, honest conversations about money make better financial decisions as adults. They understand that strategy matters more than any single rate or deal. They think about how money fits into the bigger picture of their lives. That's the same approach I bring to strategic debt management. It's never just about one interest rate. It's about understanding your whole financial picture and making strategic choices that align with what matters most to you. Bottom line, if you want to get your financial house in order so you can model good money habits for your kids, rsrlinks.com/keysteps. rsrlinks.com/keysteps. It's a tool that helps you think through your financial priorities and make strategic decisions about household budget. But here's the truth. The best way to teach your kids about money is to show them what good financial decision making looks like in real life. I am Ron Siegel, your certified liability advisor, helping families build wealth through strategic debt management, reminding you that strategy beats rate always. That is the Borrow Smart segment brought to you by our GetHomeSelect.com, GetHomeSelect.com. You are listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. When we come back, insurance review for empty nesters and retirees. And if your house isn't selling, it may be your asking price. All that and more. Reach me anytime. Off-air number 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or RonSiegelRadio.com, Facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you miss any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube. Ron Siegel, the number 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Ron Siegel Radio. Your home and mortgage connection.
Do you know a homeowner experiencing divorce? Do you know a real estate reference in the divorce decree could cost tens of thousands of dollars? A certified divorce mortgage planning and real estate report could save you thousands of dollars, and it's free from your local certified divorce lending professional. Reach out to Ron today. RonIsMyLender.com. Again, RonIsMyLender.com. Licensed under NMLS 217037, Equal Housing Lender.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. Borrow Smart segment today being brought to you by GetHomeSelect.com, GetHomeSelect.com. Kids are out of the house. You're approaching retirement. Your insurance needs are about to shift in ways most people never see coming. I am Ron Siegel, Certified Liability Advisor, helping families build wealth through strategic debt management. You know, I was on a Zoom call last month with a couple, empty nesters, both in their early 60s. They'd been so focused on paying down their mortgage that they hadn't thought about their insurance strategy in years. Here's the thing. When you're in that empty nester phase heading into retirement, your insurance needs don't disappear, they shift. And understanding that is part of having your financial house in order. Let me walk through what actually changes. Home insurance. First, your home. Whether you have a mortgage or not, you need to protect this asset. But here's what most people miss. The policy you bought 20 years ago is probably way outdated. Your home's replacement cost has changed. Your belongings have accumulated. This is actually the perfect time to review your coverage and make sure it matches your current situation. And while you're at it, check those deductibles against your financial situation today, not what it was when you first bought the policy. And here's something most people don't think about: umbrella policies. You've built up assets over the years. An umbrella policy protects you against personal liability claims that could threaten everything you've worked for. It's not expensive, but it can save you from financial catastrophe. Health insurance. Let's talk health insurance, because this is where things get tricky. Retiring before 65. You've got a gap to bridge until Medicare kicks in. If your spouse is still working, getting on their plan might make sense, but you likely need to wait for their employer's enrollment period. Otherwise, you're looking at private coverage or the marketplace. Not ideal, but you can't go without coverage. One medical emergency can wipe out your retirement savings. Once you hit 65 and get on Medicare, here's something important. Do not try to navigate this alone. Medicare has so many options, so many moving parts. Part A, Part B, Part D, Medigap, Medicare Advantage. It can be overwhelming. The good news, there are professionals who specialize in helping people navigate Medicare, and they're paid through insurance companies. No cost to you, zero, nada, nil, zilch. They'll walk you through your options, help you understand what coverage makes sense for your situation, and make sure you're not leaving money on the table. Medicare Part D helps with prescription costs. Medigap insurance covers what Medicare doesn't. The sweet spot for getting Medigap is within the first 6 months of turning 65. That's when you get the best rates and most choices. But figuring out which plan works best for you, that's where having someone in your corner really pays off. Disability and life insurance. What about disability insurance? Once you stop working, you can drop it. The need is expired. But life insurance, that's more nuanced. Sure, the kids are grown. Some of those obligations that drove your need for life insurance might have changed, but new needs might have emerged. Estate planning, creating liquidity for your heirs, leaving a legacy. Maybe you want to make sure your spouse is taken care of or leave something for your grandkids. The purpose is shifted from protection to planning. Extended care. Here's the big one most people avoid thinking about. Extended care insurance. With the kids out of the house, you can focus on protecting yourself against potentially the biggest expense you'll face in retirement. I'm talking about long-term care costs, whether it's home care or a nursing facility. These expenses add up fast. And here's what catches people off guard. Medicare does not cover the most of these costs. This is where that safety, liquidity, and return framework really matters. Extended care insurance protects the safety and liquidity of your retirement assets. Speaking of liquidity, this is exactly why keeping equity trapped in your home can be so dangerous. You need accessible resources to handle unexpected costs, and extended care is one of the biggest. Practical action. So what does this mean for you? If you're in that empty nester phase or approaching retirement, now's the time to do a complete insurance review. Not to cancel everything, to make sure your coverage matches your current life stage. And look at your homeowner's policy and review those deductibles. Check your health insurance options. Consider umbrella coverage. Evaluate whether you still need life insurance or if the purpose has changed, and don't put off the extended care conversation. And when it comes to Medicare, get help. Don't try to figure it out on your own. There are professionals who do this every day, and it won't cost you a penny. Remember, insurance is part of your overall financial strategy. It's not just about protecting against loss. It's about protecting the wealth you've built while maintaining the liquidity you need to actually enjoy retirement. Bottom line, the goal here isn't to sell more insurance. I don't sell insurance. It's to make sure your coverage aligns with where you are now, not where you were 20 years ago. Strategy beats rate always, and having the right insurance strategy in place is just as important as managing your debt and building your assets. Want help reviewing your overall financial picture? Head over to rsrlinks.com/keysteps to access our financial house in order tool. I am Ron Siegel, your certified liability advisor, helping families build wealth through strategic debt management. That is the Borrow Smart segment, brought to you by GetHomeSelect.com. GetHomeSelect.com. I think we have time for a quick real-time real estate segment brought to you by rsrmoney.com, rsrmoney.com. Your home has been on the market for weeks. Crickets. And I think I've got that here. I don't use that one very often. No offers, not even lowball ones. Before you blame the market or your agent, there's one question you need to answer. Is your price the problem? I am Ron Siegel, Certified Liability Advisor, helping realtors guide their clients and families build wealth through strategic debt management. Here's what I'm seeing right now in the market. Homes are sitting, and when I talk to frustrated sellers, they all ask the same thing. Why isn't anyone making an offer? The answer is usually simple: price. According to recent data, the number one reason homes are not getting offers is because they're priced too high for the current market. And I get it. You've got a number in your head. Maybe it's what your neighbor sold for last year. Maybe it's what you need to pay off your mortgage and walk away with something. But here's the thing. Buyers don't care about any of that. Buyers care about one thing. Is this home worth what they're asking? Now, here's the good news. You probably don't need to make a massive price cut to see results. Current data shows the typical price reduction right now is only about 4%. That's it. Not 10%, not 15%, 4%. So what does this mean for you? When you listed your home at $800,000 and it's not moving, a 4% adjustment brings you down to $768,000. That's roughly $32,000. And I know it feels like a lot of money. But think about this. Every day your home sits on the market, it becomes stale. Buyers start wondering what's wrong with it. Check out our buy down strategy, rsrlinks.com/buy down, because you might be able to have your agent put a simple line in your listing, in the advertisements. Seller has approved special financing terms through their approved lender. You use that same 4%, and you might now be looking at maybe a 4.99% mortgage rate, 30 years fixed, not temporary. A small pricing adjustment can save you months of carrying costs, mortgage payments, insurance, and frustration. Story time. I worked with a seller last month. Nice family. Got home in a good neighborhood. They listed at $950,000 because that's what Zillow said it was worth. 3 months later, not a single offer. We looked at what was actually selling in their area, not just what was listed. Turns out comparable homes were closing between $900,000 and $915,000. They dropped their price to $909. Within 2 weeks, they had 3 offers and closed at $905. Yes, they left some money on the table compared to their original asking price, but they also stopped paying a $5,000 monthly mortgage for a house they were not living in. Strategy beats stubbornness, always. Here's what I tell the realtors I work with. Pricing isn't about what the seller wants. It's about what the market will bear. And right now, the market is telling us something very clear. Buyers have options. If your price doesn't match reality, then they'll move on to the next house. So if you're ready for something to change, you have to be willing to make a change. Talk to your agent. Ask them for a real comparative market analysis based on what's actually closing in your neighborhood and right now, not last year, not last month. What's listed, what's closing. Because at the end of the day, the best price is the one that gets your home sold and helps you accomplish your goals. For more insights on making smart real estate decisions that support your overall financial strategy, visit ronsiegelradio.com. And if you want to learn 3 different strategies to maximize your home's sale price, rsrlinks.com/salesmax. rsrlinks.com/salesmax. Remember, strategy beats rate always. I am Ron Siegel, your certified liability advisor, helping families build wealth through strategic debt management. That is the Real-Time Real Estate segment brought to you by rsrmoney.com, rsrmoney.com. And as always, I ask, set that first radio preset button to come back here and join Ron Siegel Radio, where we only speak about items affecting your house and your bank account. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Big thanks to Josh and Sean for engineering us today. And of course, a special thanks to you for spending a little bit of your day with us. That's all for Ron Siegel Radio. Again, if you have any questions or to meet any of our guests, call me anytime, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990 at ronsiegelradio.com. And remember, make a lot of money, help a lot of people, and have a lot of fun. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time on Ron Siegel Radio.